All right, good morning. I am Morgan Richardson. I am the Career Services Manager at CodePath. Hopefully, most of you know who I am by now. 10:30 in India, I see. Well, thank you for being available, Anish. So today we have our fifth and final industry panel as part of CodePath's technical interview prep course. Today's panel is sponsored and produced by Comcast. Comcast, as you all know, is one of the companies attending our virtual career fair on September 13th. So we're very thankful for them to be able to make this time to be available for this panel. So just as a reminder, so today's panel is about establishing your place in the tech industry. So basically, we're going to be talking about how to navigate the workplace and level up in your career, how to find mentors and sponsors, how to build your internal networks, and how to use these tools to advance your careers in technology. So you all have done these panels before. So some basic ground rules. We're going to keep everyone's microphones on mute to make sure that everyone can hear the panelists and to control for background noise. We've curated questions for this panel topic from the questions that you submitted in the Slido. And then at the end, if there are follow-up questions, please add them to the chat box in the Zoom link, and we will attend to the follow-up questions in the last 10 minutes of the panel. All right, so to get started, I want to introduce our panelists. So first we have Alexa Chathams. Alexa is a software engineer at Comcast. She's currently doing the, I believe it's called the Core Rotational Program, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Alexa, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself to the students?
Yeah, hi, my name is Alexa. As Morgan just said, I'm doing a rotational program within Comcast. It's a 2-year rotational program where I rotate to different teams within the business, different software teams. And my previous rotation was in DC, working with the AI research labs, specifically the XCV team. And my current rotation is with the Decision Sciences team for NBC in New York.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexa, and thank you for joining us today. All right, next we have, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Sama Today Torbo. Sama is currently a software engineer with Comcast, and he's working on continuous integration and deployment. Sama, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Morgan. Hi, my name is Seema. Close. I currently work at Comcast. It's okay. I currently work at Comcast on the Concourse team, which helps provide continuous integration and continuous delivery to the different teams at Comcast. In my current role, I am helping create and establish best practices that Comcast as an entire organization use when it comes to delivering code. In some previous roles, I've had experience in the startup world and the consulting world and a bunch of other different market domains. So thank you for having me.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and next we have Deneen Guy. Deneen Guy is also currently a software engineer at Comcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Deneen Guy. I am a software engineer at Comcast. I've been with the company for about almost 5 years. I started out working out as a web developer for their Xfinity home security system, helping to actually reestablish and envision that product and recreate that web application. Since then, I worked in that for a couple years. Since then, I just recently moved on to Android development, and I work in the digital home space, which encompasses both the Xfinity home security system as well as their Xfinity internet service. So I'm working in Android doing the application, both of those applications currently.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then last but not least, we have Mumeen Ransom, and Mumeen is working on the machine learning platform development team at Comcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you, Morgan. And thank you for saying my name correctly. So yeah, I'm Mumeen Ransom. I lead a team that's at the intersection of customer experience and machine learning. It's a really exciting place to be within Comcast because customer experiences is going to be our #1 product, and machine learning is what I like to call programming 2.0. It's where all of these software departments, I believe, will go to at some point. So my team, the goal is to drive down costs by meeting customers digitally with predictions about their customer service and offering resolutions in a digital way. Daily, my team handles up to 6 billion events, and we respond to about 1.5 million customer service requests, with about 85% of those customers actually using those requests, which equates to a lot of dollars saved during the year. I also joined what we call in Comcast, which is a employee resource group. We call it the Black Employee Network. And while there, I helped to found, along with Justin LaRose, what we call the Bengineers, which is a Black technology community focused on helping with pipeline activities and advocacy and representation amongst for Black technologists within Comcast. So thank you, Morgan.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being available today. So I'm going to kick off with some questions. So first, I'm going to ask one question to each panelist, and then we will open up to the rest of the questions that the students have submitted for any panelists to answer. So first, Alexa, since you're new to Comcast and you're just starting your career after college, I thought this might be a great question for you to address. So some students were wondering, when you're just starting out and you don't have many connections, where do you look to find opportunities for yourself? Oh, Alexa, I think you're on mute. Unmute your microphone.
Hello?
Awesome. Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it said I was muted by, I guess, host, but yeah, so it's a great question. So I think where I looked for mentors like early on is definitely within my team, but then I also looked outside of my team. So like Comcast, of course, has like a bunch of support groups, ERG groups, so employee research groups, which so there's like women in tech, there's Black engineers. So if you can kind of like find like your different groups and like find different people in those groups, you can probably find mentors within the community. But then specifically on your team, really great resources like your manager is usually there to help you. So definitely be in communication with your manager, schedule one-on-ones, talk to as many people as you can. And when you talk to people, you can kind of get like connections through the business and kind of move from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexa. All right. So the next question I had is for Seema, and it is, how do you determine the quality of work before you join a company, and where do you look to address that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is, how do you determine the quality of work before I join a company? For me, I believe I try to look at exactly what it is that market domain that company is and what their goal is, what service they're trying to provide, what services they're trying to make easier for people. And I really just kind of see myself as being a part of that, but also B, longevity in that space. You know, is that something that's going to continue to evolve and grow? Or is that something that's going to slowly die down where you kind of become a maintainer of a very monolithic architecture? And now it's like you're struggling to find the motivation to continue to go to work every day and really like give it your all because it's not exciting, it's not new. So I think you have to find a good balance between a company that's willing to go on the cutting edge and not afraid to try new things, but also has a good sense of where they're going in direction, you know? So like, this is our goal, this is where we're trying to get to, and this is how we think we're going to get there. And once you find that company, the best thing you can do is to be like, hey, I want to be part of that team. I want to help you grow and contribute in my own way. So at the end of the day, it's something you can be proud of, you know. Speaking for myself, being here at Comcast, you know, sometimes I go home and it's like I turn on my TV and it's a pretty cool feeling, knowing that like the things you use every day in your life, like clicking the button on your channel, it's like, oh, I talked to the guy who built that yesterday, or I sit right next to the team who built the voice cover remote command. So, and things like that, I would believe it's really just figure out where you want to go and try to aim your job career choices towards that goal, right? Like, where do you want to be, not in 5 months, but in 5 years? Because the jobs you decide to take from then till now kind of build up to where you eventually want to go. So if you've gone from one side of the spectrum to the other and then back down, you know, it's hard to really put together like, what is it that you're trying to do? You know, because that's going to be a question that you get a lot, is what is your overall goal as a software engineer or as a developer in the world? Like, where are you trying to reach to? So just make sure that your job choices reflect what it is you're trying to do.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, next for Mumin. Did you imagine yourself working in the role you're in now, or did your path change over time? I thought this would be a great question for you because you've been at Comcast for 14 years. And so I imagine you've probably done a lot of different things in the business. So did you imagine yourself working in the role you're in now, or did your path change over time?
Thanks, Morgan. So I would say that this wasn't exactly what I imagined, but I did, one of the goals in my career, what I try to do is create a vision for myself, right, around where I want to be and how I want to be impactful within the industry, within the organization. And I try to reflect on that actually yearly, but maybe every 3 years I try to make a move. So you said I've been at Comcast for 14 years, and during that time I've had an opportunity to move across all of its business lines, and from different, I've seen Comcast change from a like this just huge cable company that just bought equipment and installed it to a software technology organization where we're actually selling, you know, the software that we're building. So I was able to, you know, get a good experience across all of those things, all of those business lines, and over time. So about the question, did I envision me being here? No, not exactly. But as these changes happened, I did find myself excuse me, 1 minute. Sorry, I should have it on mute. So but I did try to position myself intentionally to be in these different spaces that I ended up in. So when we went through our software transformation, me not having a software development background, not having a software development background, I still wanted to position myself to be able to help out. So I moved into that space from a strategic standpoint around helping to build out the environment and the policies around what software development would be at Comcast. And as I progressed on, you know, that changed more from this being an individual contributor as an engineer to a strategic, being a strategic part of building Comcast into the software development organization that it is, and into a people leader of today. And I think that definitely was like my vision, to be able to go from this engineer where I started at Comcast to become a people leader. But on that path, I needed to make sure that I found experiences or was able to be in a space to get experiences that would help me, you know, in my current role. But no, I didn't think that I would be, I did think that Comcast would eventually want to take on customer experience, which is a great thing. But I didn't know that we would be working, you know, at an intersection of customer experience and AI. But it is a great space to be in. And now, I guess my new role, my new path is to you know, create a new vision for where I go from here. And thinking about vision, when I started to pull together the engineers, I really did have a vision behind that. So, and that being, you know, focusing on the pipeline activities here at Comcast and helping Black engineers, Black technologists to get the attention that we need and that's necessary for us to promote ourselves throughout our careers. So I would say, to sum all that up, I would say you should step back, you know, take a chance, outline a vision for yourself, decide where you want to go, where you want to be, and then put those steps together that really help you to get to whatever that vision is in the end.
Awesome, thank you. And then Deneen, the question I have for you, how did you establish your own career goals in such a fast-paced and demanding industry as the tech industry?
For me, I kind of knew that I wanted to go into web development pretty early on in my career, like in the early 2000s. So I initially went into tech back in the early 2000s, but I got pigeonholed into software testing. And I was in software testing for about 4 years, and I could never make my step or get my foot into development. After that, I kind of gave up on technology, and I switched careers. I went back to school, got my MBA, and I knew that I always wanted to work in e-commerce for some reason, and be a developer in e-commerce. So I switched careers and went into retail. And I thought I was gonna be able to make my transition into web development that way. That never really happened for me. And so then after like 7 years of working in retail and working for big e-commerce companies, it never came to fruition, but luckily boot camps came around. And I still had this passion and desire to do web development. So I started taking little classes here and there, got really, really interested in it. And then one day I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a chance on myself, quit my job, enrolled in a web development program, boot camp, did that for 3 months, and then I landed my job here at Comcast, first as a consultant, and then I came on full time. But my career goals was, I've kind of given up on e-commerce. I still love web development and I love being a developer, but I think it's more about just figuring out what motivates you, what you're passionate about, and sticking to that. So while my path does not seem like it was very windy, I still had an idea. I pretty much stayed in tech throughout my career. But it was never in a development fashion until I really believed in myself and started proving things to myself. Now, and I used to push for promotions and push for everything. Now I'm more go with the flow. And I'm just focusing on my strengths, continuing to work on things that I need to develop. But by focusing on my strengths and really just being a sponge and absorbing, a lot of opportunities are coming to me instead of me having to go to them. So for instance, I got into Android development because my VP wanted to take a chance on me and decided to put me into that role. I'm not an Android user at all. I'm an iPhone user, but I decided to take the chance in Android development because of the technology, the Java and Kotlin that I'll be learning, and it's transferable skills that I'll be able to use for web development, mobile development. If I want to do embedded systems, anything, it's a transferable language. So I'm really focused now on focusing on things and skill sets or tools that are transferable and marketable to anywhere I want to go. So if you focus on that, I think you'll be okay, and opportunities will start to come to you.
Awesome, thank you for that. That was really inspiring. You know, you had such a winding journey getting into tech. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now the next questions will be open to any of the panelists. So feel free to answer if you feel that you have an answer for the question. So first, students had a couple of questions about mentors and sponsorship. So the first question was, how do I determine which employees would make a good mentor?
Can I answer that? So I have a recommendation for when you think about mentorship or working with someone to be your mentor. I think first, in this really busy world, it's hard to tie someone down and have them spend a lot of time with you. So I like to think of my own approach to mentorship as this board of trustees. I look at a few people who I really admire that I think I can learn something from, and I think that would value a relationship with me, a mutual relationship with me in my professional world. And I try to gather a few people instead of just one, so that I can bounce things off of them or have conversation with them, or ask them about experiences that they've had. I also think when you do ask someone to be your mentor, so I never ask someone to be my mentor. I just start having a conversation with them, and I bring my ideas and I bring my concerns, and I look for feedback on it. But I do treat them as a mentor. I treat them as like I said, my board of trustees that I can go to for, help with difficult decisions or challenges that I have. Not burdening them with it, but being able to, have a conversation about it. Because ultimately, the choice is up to me about what I make based on whatever conversations or what I learn. And the other thing about it is that it's a mutual, so mentorship is I think of it as a mutual relationship. Like I said earlier, typically when someone does want to talk to you or wants to help you out in some way, they will, they get something back from it, right? They get to see you, evolve into a new person or into whatever vision that you've told them about. And I think that's pretty fulfilling for someone, because I think when I mentor people, I feel the same way. Like I look at them and I see their growth, and I think that is a great thing. But all in all, overall, I think that you should talk to multiple people, have a real plan about, like, a vision or plan about what it is that you want to get from them. And, you have to actually keep up that relationship and all of that contact and all of that communication. So when you look to a mentor or a group of mentors, it's really your responsibility to own that relationship and make sure that it is a relationship that is beneficial in both directions in some way.
Okay, piggyback off of what Moomin said. I totally agree with everything he said. To add to that, I think one thing that I've found in my career is that there's mentorship is two-part. There's the mentorship, the people aspect, then there's a mentorship, the learning, coding, constantly evolving aspect. From the people aspect, one of the things that I found is try to find people who challenge your ideas, obviously in a respectful way, but challenge your ideas and how you think. And when they ask you, well, why would you do it this way? Or why do you think that? Or, it's like, don't take it as they're coming at you, but take it more of like they're challenging the way you're thinking. And if you don't have an answer right away, it's okay. Take it back to a drawing board and really ponder it. Like, why is it that they asked me this question? Maybe there's something they're missing that they're trying to lead you down a different path, or maybe there's a different way of thinking that they're trying to get you to kind of naturally gravitate to, if that be the case. On the second half of mentoring doesn't only have to come from people. It comes from things like code reviews and being in grooming meetings, sprint planning meetings, architecture meetings, right? It's not direct one-on-one mentoring, but the thing you get via code review, if I do a pull, if you open a pull request and I'm like, hey, have you thought about using this library? Or, hey, why are you doing it this way? Or have you thought about this use case or this edge case, right? Those little interactions, I know people take them for granted, but they are points of mentoring, right? Because it's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or you're right, maybe I should use Node instead of Java for this. And sometimes it's just like, you would never have thought of that unless someone brought it up to you. So when people make suggestions in whatever form that may be, always make a note of it to take it back to your desk or to your house and really think about what it is that they suggested. Maybe you don't have to go deep diving into it, but just make sure it's something you have in your repertoire you can come back to. It's like, I know someone mentioned this design pattern when they were building something for the other company. I wonder if it applies to what I'm trying to do here. And a lot of times you find that a lot of what people give, you will end up using very innately, be like, I know how to do it this way, but, I remember this guy on my team wrote a whole feature and he used this NPM package. Maybe I'll try to use it and learn something new. And when you start to do that, that in itself is mentoring, because yes, you're growing, which is the ultimate goal, but you're also gaining the knowledge, not directly, but through an infusion of asking questions and code reviews and just like the overall aspect of being part of a operating group and someone trying to reach a certain goal. So I think you should look at it in both terms.
And I just want to add that when you're thinking about a mentor or a sponsor, don't go into it like, can this person be my mentor and my sponsor? Go into it thinking about the relationships that you build. Focus on building relationships with those people. Focus on, like, is this person that I can speak to open and honestly about anything? Is this a person who's going to give me good advice and challenge me on my thoughts, just like Seema just said? Is this a person who I can go to and let my walls down and be able to speak to freely? These are people who are going to give you advice in your career or through code reviews or anything like that. And it's a little bit different than a sponsorship or a sponsor. A sponsor is, and a mentor could be inside or outside of work, right? A sponsor is someone who's more like a high level person within the organization that is going to advocate for you. So they're the people that are going to be in that room when they're discussing all the employees and discussing who should get promoted and who's going to get the next opportunity. You want that person to be able to speak on your behalf and advocate for you. So that's very different than mentorship, and you need both of those things. So focus on building relationships, and then eventually you can ask them to be your mentor or your sponsor. It'll happen organically if you really focus on building those relationships.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, that actually leads to a good follow-up question. So how do you know if someone is going to be your sponsor? Is that something that you should explicitly advocate for? Or is it something that as you build that relationship over time, you know that they're going to be in your corner when those decisions are being made?
I think it's something you should advocate for. I think you want the person to, like, you can come to work every day and do a fabulous job, right? But if you're not showing that you want more, asking for more, you don't get what you don't ask for, right? People won't know that there is some more that you want, that you want the new position, that you want to be considered for the management role, that you want to lead the next project. And you want someone to be in that room when they're asking about who should, take up this new challenge, for that person to say, well, Alexa did ask me about that, and I fully support her going into that space and doing that thing. Without that, it's hard, for people to know that that's something that you want. And in some cases, it is possible, though, that you have a sponsor that sees you and admires the things that you're doing and will sit in the room and, ask and advocate for you. But to be certain, I think you should ask. I think you should talk to those people. I think you should understand who the influencers are within your organization. I think you should make sure that they know who you are, so that when those opportunities come up, you can be considered.
I think to add to that, one thing I will say, the piece of advice that I wish I had learned a little bit earlier in my career is asking is one thing, but also having the portfolio or the backing behind what you're asking for. It's one thing to be like, hey, I think I'm ready to take this leap for this position. And I remember one of my managers I asked, he's like, well, why should I give you this position? And I kind of was sitting there looking at him like he had two heads. And it was really a humbling moment for me, because in my mind, I thought that I had reached that level, like I'm killing it, I'm getting all my work done. But in reality, it's like I didn't really have much to show. I was being a good team member, I was being productive, but like, had I really taken that next step? And one thing he told me was that he doesn't promote people who he feels deserve to be promoted. He promotes people who are already working at that next level. So when you're thinking about whatever your next opportunity is, remember that people are more likely to advocate and sponsor you when they have concrete evidence that you're already working at this level. When you're in those meetings about who gets the next promotion or who gets to lead the next team, and your sponsor can be like, well, Seema has already been doing this. He took the lead on this without asking, or he's leading this testing program to try to make our testing suite more dynamic. When you have things that people can refer back to, it makes their argument that much more compelling, and it helps them out in the long run because they have things that they can point back to as evidence as to why you should, right? And it makes their argument much stronger. So when you're thinking about sponsors, and you also have to be able to help those sponsors by being productive and producing and giving them a portfolio that they can then refer back to on your behalf, right? So just make sure when you're ready to take those next steps that you feel confident in your work and everything that you've done forward, and be like, yes, I think I've done X, Y, and Z, and here's my pitch to you as to why I should be in that next role or in that next position. So don't just think that everything is deserved, right? You have to put the work in behind it and be able to show that work as well.
That's a great point, Seema. I think that to add to that, is this talk about your own personal brand and people knowing about you before, having your reputation precede you. And I think that's important to have And, like Seema said, building this portfolio, making sure people know what that is, know what you contribute. And then, you have to do some self-promoting also, just to add to what you said there.
Yeah, that's a great point, and actually really leads into another question that students had, which is, how do you convey the impact and progress that you've made to your team or your manager without coming across as boastful?
I can speak to that a little bit. I think it's okay to be a little bit boastful. You have to be your own champion. When it comes to performance reviews, I'm the one on the team that is extremely verbose. I write a book about myself, and my manager absolutely hates it, but I'm the only one that does it, so it's okay. But you have to be very introspective, and you have to be self-aware. You need to know what your strengths are, what are your areas of opportunities, and be honest and open about that. And that's what I do. I have one-on-ones like every other week with my manager now, and we literally establish something where I go in there and I have like a sheet of paper that I go in and I write down like what were my action items from last week, what I did, what I accomplished, what I completed, what are my concerns and my worries, like what am I doing next, what are my milestones, what have I accomplished. And so if you do that and you go there and you can give that to them, that not only like shows them what you're doing, what you're accomplishing, and what your stretch goals are, and if you're reaching them, but it also helps you at the end of the year when you're doing your performance review. You can go back, look through all this stuff, and easily write up your performance review. One thing I would caution though is when you are talking about the things that you're doing, you want to talk about the things that you're doing personally or independently, but you also want to talk about what you're doing as a team. So you can't just say I. You also have to talk about like what you did for the team, what value brought to the company, and then how you are leveraging or working with your team and being more collaborative to be able to like do something that's better for the business. So it can't be just I, it has to be we.
Yeah, I agree with that fully. I was also thinking about that question in terms of a sense of like an end of year review or like a quarterly review. You're supposed to advocate for yourself. You're supposed to tell like your impact. And sometimes it's not clear what you've been doing. But if you've had that like one-on-one repertoire like every week and you're telling your manager or your team everything that you have been doing or what you have been contributing to the team, I think that's really important. So like I think it's definitely important to to let your team and your manager know like the impact that you have been having on the team.
Thank you. I love how Deneen, you go in there very prepared with all that. I think I'm going to ask I'll use that as a framework for myself and for my team members. I think also that the organizations kind of make this a little bit easy for us these days. We have these objectives and key results that we know the business needs to achieve by the end of the year. And we know that there's work that we're given throughout the year through different systems. At Comcast, we happen to have Raleigh and Jira that align with those objectives and key results. So as we work on those we call them stories, with those projects and those tasks and drive them down, I think we actually create that book, though, Deneen, that we should be able to take to our managers or people leaders and show where you actually contributed and how you were part of the team to be able to create the value that was being asked of us throughout the year. So I think it's important to know that there's a way to track this with the things that you do. And although managers and people leaders see that, it is best that you present it in a well thought out way so that they can know how much you contributed, how much of a team player you were, and what business value you were personally, or your team was personally responsible for.
To finish up, to wrap up the question, I think for me, one thing that I've learned and I've kind of seen over my career is that if it's something that innately helps the team especially in my current role where it's like we kind of adopted this whole big platform and we're literally learning by the seat of our pants type of situation here. Anything you can do to try to make our lives easier, you know, whether it be like a simple tool that we can use to query our database or spin up instances and just, you know, if you build things that ultimately either A, give the business value, or B, relieve some type of headache from the team, I think your value will be received because they're the guy, you're the person they go to when it comes to that certain domain knowledge, right? Whether you took the lead on doing a proof of concept for this new tool, this new framework, or just implementing like a Slack bot for your team to be able to like move Jira tickets, you know, things like that don't go unnoticed. And when push comes to shove, people on your team do see your value. So I don't think you necessarily have to boast about it as much as is like, oh man, the Slack bot is awesome. And then it breaks and it's like, man, I would thank God he was here to fix it. Or it's like, no one really knows how it works, but you've kind of been the guy who's been taking the lead on this. And it's like, we can lean on him and we trust him to get it done. And it's like, oh man, thank God this person was here because where would we be without them? It'd take a lot more time to have to go and figure this back out again. So when you try to be a team player and just try to do things that innately help the team become better at their job and to meet the goals in general, I think your value just organically becomes just stated. You know, it's not something you have to boast about. Obviously, you want to advocate for yourself in that review process, but during the year when you guys are working to meet those goals, you know, when you become a team player and you really try to think about what the team needs and not like what cool thing I want to learn, but how does this value the team? And you pitch it that way, like, hey guys, I think this can really help us in this instance, or this can really help us in this field. When you look at it that way, your value is incredible, and it's just like innately, organically, just formed. You know, the trust and everything else comes along with it. So you don't necessarily have to boast. It's known that you're a valued member of the team.
Awesome. Thank you all for those great responses. I wanted to try to tie what you all were saying into, you know, if students currently, maybe they've just completed their first internship. So maybe they've only been with the company 10 to 12 weeks. They might have had a smaller project. How can they kind of link the experience and the work that they've done in that internship into what you all are talking about you know, making your accomplishments known, advocating for yourself in this situation, probably for either a return offer or a full-time offer after they graduate? How can they kind of link that internship experience to what you all were saying about, you know, doing good work and advocating for yourself?
I think it's something Ramin said, you don't get what you don't ask for. Something that I'm actually going through right now. And I would tell you guys is don't be afraid to ask what it is, what it is to meet that bar. You know, like if you're trying to get to a senior position, ask your manager, like, hey, what do you guys expect from a senior engineer? Right? Like don't assume that you got to do X, Y, and Z and then you're there, because what you think and what they actually think could be totally off. And then you come to that point where it's like, oh man, what do I do? I've been working hard, but I've been working hard on the wrong things, right? So have that conversation from the get-go. It's not comfortable sometimes, I know, because you don't want to be like you're overstepping your boundaries, you're not ready to have that conversation, but it is so valuable to you in your career and something you're gonna have to do time and time again. If you're an intern, you should ask the person you're reporting up to, like, hey, what do you guys expect from incoming engineer here? Like, what are your hiring standards? Like, what do you expect someone to know? And the good thing about it is you being an intern, you already kind of have a glimpse into what it is this company does, where they're going, how they operate. So you're not like somebody who's applied for a job. Now you have to come into an interview and try to figure out whether or not you and this company mesh. You've been there long enough where you can figure that out. So use that to your advantage. And usually when you do that, people are pretty good about telling you exactly what they're looking for in an engineer, right? Maybe they'll shoot you to a job description, or they'll be like, we're looking for someone to possibly come back and do what you're doing, but on a better level. You know, maybe someone who understands the bigger picture, or has a little bit more experience in this field. Then you take that back to wherever you're going and you work on those skills that they're looking for, or you try to fine tune what you've learned and perfect them. And then you you'd be like, hey, in 6 months, can I apply? And it's like, yeah, that conversation sticks with them, because when they see your name, it's like, oh yeah, I remember she talked about wanting to come here full time, and you've already kind of set yourself up to be successful in that way. So don't be afraid to ask, what is the criteria to be at that level? I think that goes a long way.
I think you stole my answer, but that's good. That's a great answer, Seema. To add to that, I think try to keep those connections, right? There are many ways to keep in touch these days. LinkedIn is one of my favorite, especially for a professional community. Connect with these people outside when you leave your internship, and keep up with them. Follow them, find out what's going on. Maybe they will have an opening later on, and you'll have the path for a conversation right away, because you've worked there before. You've already engaged with them in some way. And just echoing what Seema said, find out what it is that takes you from an intern to an engineer, or to the next level that gets you into that space.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just pausing, make sure anyone else wanted to chime in on that. Okay, great. And so then the students also had some more questions just about working in the software engineering or in the tech industry in general. So the first one that I wanted to start off with, do you think that you had to make a lot of sacrifices going into your career? And they're talking about family time. How hard is it to balance work and life?
I would say that I did make a lot of sacrifices, I think, by choosing to start a family later on in life. I didn't have kids until I was 38. So during that time, though, I focused a lot on my career. I mean, I was social, but a lot of it was around my career. Now that I have my family, it is, I found it really difficult in the beginning to be able to have the right work-life balance between the two. Over time, I have found that I just put my priorities in order. Family's number one, right? I know that I have to work to take care of them, so that comes in a close second, right? And I make sure that it's basically having those priorities set, knowing what's important and when it's important, and making the right time. And you definitely don't want to burn out either one of those things. Like you want to overload work and then not put enough into family, and vice versa. And even with my employees, I like to stress work-life balance is a very important thing, not just to myself, but to them and to our product, because I think that it is best that you find that that level or that balance of happiness, so that you can be a good person outside of work and inside of work. So I think, to sum it up, it's really about priorities and making sure that the ones that are valuable to you are the ones that you're taking care of.
Just to add, so I'm pretty early on in my career, but I think that work-life balance is something that's very important to ask when you're like interviewing with like these different companies and like teams, because I think it's very dependent on the team of like how they define like work-life balance and how like they prioritize it. So like if that's like a big priority for you, definitely ask when you're interviewing for these teams. And then also when you are entering on these teams, you can also experience what that work-life balance would be. Of course, I don't have like, I don't have kids or anything like that. So, but once that, you should definitely be asking that question when you're interviewing, but because it's very dependent on team. Yeah.
Just to add to that, it's not only dependent on team, it's also dependent on what company you work for. I feel like Comcast has a pretty good work-life balance. At least in my group, they do. In previous companies I've worked for, I've worked 80 hours a week. I've worked until 2 o'clock in the morning within the office. I've never had to do that here at Comcast. Like people are pretty much out the door at 5 o'clock in my group. When I first got here, I was used to working until 7 o'clock. I looked around at 5 o'clock and everybody was gone. So like it was a pretty good work-life balance here in this group that I work in. But I also think that it is dependent on if you go to a large corporation versus a startup. You'll probably be working a lot more hours if you go to a startup, because you're going to have to wear a whole bunch of different hats. And there's not as many resources to be able to do all the tasks. So you're going to be expected to put in more hours. And I've worked in a startup environment and I definitely had to do that. That's where I was working till 2 o'clock in the morning. But here at a big corporation, like it depends on the group, the team that you work for, definitely. It comes down from management, but usually in bigger corporations, you don't typically have to work as much as you would in a startup. So that's one thing to keep in mind, but you also have to set your priorities and time management. I know some people that get so much done in the 8 hours that they are here because they are just so productive, so proficient in getting the stuff done. And then once they get home, they shut down. Like their life is their life outside of work. So you just have to be really like proactive about that and do that.
The thing I would add, Deneen, I know the struggle of working at a startup, having to carry a laptop around with you because you're always on call. Did that for a multitude of years. I think one thing that Deneen brought up that's actually really important is time management. So when you first start out in this industry, you'll find that you have a lot of free time, and during sometimes and outside of work. When you're younger, I would say take those opportunities to really try to learn, right? Because you don't have expectations. So you don't go home, you don't have many humans who are depending on you for their every need, right? Your time is yours. But as you get older and you start a family, and now all of a sudden you realize like that new language you wanted to learn at like 9 o'clock at night on a Thursday because you didn't have anything else to do, now it's bedtime, okay? So that the time frames shift a little bit, but what stays constant is there's little pockets of time for you to actually get things done, and it's your choice of whether you want to browse Facebook and watch YouTube videos, or if you want to, be diligent and get your work done. A tip that really helps me is I keep timers on my laptop, so when I get into work and after my morning meetings, I have like a 30-minute timer where in like this 30-minute slot, I want to get one thing checked off my list, whether that's like do all my code reviews or get all my service account tickets out the way, or, answer Slack for 30 minutes, whatever the case may be. But prioritizing what it is you're going to do with your time is very important. And also with the work-life balance, something to note is there's going to be ebbs and flows depending on what you are, what you're doing, what your product is, what group you're on. Currently, I've had some late night deploys working at Comcast, and it's kind of it's comes the job, So I think one thing to know is like sometimes you do have to burn the midnight oil, but it's not something you want to fall in love with. I understand like sometimes things need to get done, and you may be up till 2 o'clock in the morning doing them. It's part of the job. But if you're constantly up till 2 a.m. to meet deadlines and you're constantly up against the clock, then you need to take a step back and really think about, okay, what am I doing with my time, and why is it that I'm constantly fighting this time crunch that I'm in? And take a step back and realize like, is there something I can cut out? Maybe I need to wake up earlier and get into the office so I can get more productive before people get in and start asking me questions, or maybe I need to stay an extra hour to be able to get these things done or finish doing whatever work I had before I go home or go to the gym or whatever the case may be. So work-life balance is going to be something that's always being fine-tuned. As things come and go in life, you have to make those adjustments. You can't stay static and expect everything to work. So that would be my piece of advice for you guys, is be willing to go with it and always take a step back and realize like, what can I do better, or where do I need to give more time, or where do I need to take time from? That could be from hanging out with my friends to try to make sure I get this like feature out the door in the time that's been allocated, or maybe I take some more time away from work and leave home early so I don't burn out in another 2 months. But only you really know, and you figure it out as you go, but just be flexible about it.
I want to add one more thing to that whole time management and being productive. And this is something that I recently learned about myself. It is know how much energy it takes for you when you need to context switch. So for me, if I am I learned that I can't do a whole bunch of different tasks in one day. I usually have to focus on one thing one day. And then if it's like a different context switch, I have to focus that on another day, because I'll spend so much energy trying to context switch. So for instance, I'm working on a project now where I'm doing Android development. And then I'm in a mentorship program where I'm doing a project that is completely different language, completely different features or whatever. I can't do both of those in the same day. I have to leave my mentorship project to one specific day, because the context switching is too difficult for me. And I spend so much time just trying to switch over to the other thing. So that's a way to be more productive during your day. Just know yourself and know how much energy it takes to context switch for yourself.
I think that's an important point, Deneen. A lot of people describe it as multitasking, but it's really almost impossible to multitask, right? You really have to switch between two things in order to be able to give the focus it needs to get something done. So like Seema, I think someone mentioned earlier, like some people go home and they cut off. I like to do that. I don't like to think about work once I get home. I'd like to spend time with my kids up until 9 o'clock when they go to sleep, and then either go to the gym or do some of this volunteer work that we do within the Engineers. But it's really important that like I focus only on that thing and not be between two things, especially when I'm with my kids.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we have about 10 minutes left. So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, because we had 3 different students ask kind of a similar question. And that question was about code reviews. So sometimes you might get negative or, criticism or constructive criticism in a code review, or you might get feedback that you don't agree with. And some students were concerned that that can cause a strain on the relationship between you and either your manager or your mentors or your sponsors. How do you navigate that scenario of when you get constructive criticism or feedback that you don't agree with in a code review?
I'll take a first stab at this. In a code review, when you get constructive criticism or criticism you're not really expecting, my advice is don't take it personally. Something I like to do is I like to have team code reviews. So when I open a pull request for any feature, one thing I'll do is, and just outside of the context of the question, is really start to utilize your calendar. Is I try to put like 30 minutes on everyone on my team's calendar, and it's like, hey, we're all meeting in this room. I want to take your time to like explain in depth exactly what it is I'm trying to do. Because you need to understand, right? When you write something or you're working on a feature or a certain ticket, you're the one who's working on it. So you have full context. You know how it works inside and out. So now when you throw it up to code review, all I see are just like letters and numbers on the screen. And I'm trying to figure out and put the pieces together. So not everything is innately clear, And I think that's something that I got caught up on in the beginning of my career. I'm like, how isn't this obvious? And then as I started to become more and more senior and started to do more code reviews of people who are under me, I realized like, oh, I have no idea what you're going for here. So something to keep in mind is just like have a one-on-one conversation, right? Don't leave it to like the GitHub comments to try to go back and forth and figure out what this person's talking about. If it's something that's really bothering you and for some reason you can't get past it, be like, hey, can I grab you? Let's take a walk. I saw your code review comments and I don't really agree. Here's what I was thinking. Here's what I thought was a good idea. And guess what? Now you're coming to that person with a solution. You're not just being like, yo, man, why are you being this? Why are you being difficult? It's like, here's what I was thinking. Here was my thought process. And now that person gets a better understanding of what it is you're trying to accomplish. And maybe they're like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Or maybe they're like, yeah, but did you think about X, Y, and Z? Back to my earlier point, right? So in this case, going back to that point about mentorship, that 5-minute walk you guys take is an opportunity for you to get mentored, but also for you to learn something that you probably didn't know before, and hence why it was in a code review. So don't take those things personally. I would say try to talk to that person if possible. If you sit next to them or you can grab like 5 minutes of their time, take the time to go over there and be like, hey, can we talk about this? Here's what I was thinking. And explain yourself, right? Nothing's wrong with explaining why you did something the way you did. It's if you come off and you're just like angry about it because you feel like you're right and your way is the best way, that's when things start to go downhill. So always keep an open mind and just have a dialogue.
I add to that, on my team, we have different coding standards and coding principles that we like to live by. And and that helps to mitigate a lot of confrontations. We have a lot of tools that we use to implement that and to enforce it, so that you can't even push a commit without making sure that those principles are adhered to. So we use linters and we use Git hooks and stuff like that in order to make sure that everyone is abiding by those principles. But if someone does want to introduce something new, a new concept or a new way of doing things, we have weekly meetings, which are design reviews, and a person can go in there and suggest their different review, and the whole team gets to make comments on it, and everyone is able to do it, put up a PR, and really discuss a new way or concept of doing things. So it's pretty diplomatic, and everyone has a way to address their opinions. But there definitely are some times where these are heated discussions, but we usually address them as a team. And everyone's able to get their thoughts across and really think about if it's the best way to move forward, if it's scalable. So that's what we do on our team.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to check the chat if there were any last questions that students had. Okay, so I see one question. It is, how did you change your role within an organization? Were you given the opportunity or did you request the change? And so I'm assuming that they're in this situation, they're not necessarily talking about a promotion, but maybe you went from, so Deneen went from software testing and now she's an Android developer. So it's probably more about if you want to completely change the role that you're doing within your department, how do you initiate that opportunity?
I think it goes back to what Seema said earlier. You start operating, in that role in some way. You start showing that, this is something that you can do, and you find opportunities to be able to do it. Either you take on, some new work that's coming up, you you can help work with another team. At Comcast, we have something called Summer of Code, where you have this opportunity to join a completely different organization that does things differently, does different things than your current organization does, and gives you an opportunity to work in a space that you can show, or you can learn those new skills, and you can show that you can perform in that new role. I was able to take advantage of that opportunity when I was a Scrum Master. I worked as a product owner, and when I came back to my organization, the SVP there made me the software platform owner, which was it was a great thing for me because it's really the space I was trying to work my way into, and it happened. And I think that obviously Comcast has a space for that, and in some cases you have to make that space for yourself. You have to find those opportunities, within the company, just by asking around about how is there an opportunity to work in that space, or an opportunity to show that you can do those things.
I think it also goes into the self-advocacy as well. So I didn't exactly change my role, but my previous rotation, my manager saw me more as someone who would do data visualization for the team, but I was more interested in the algorithm side. So I was very upfront and forward with him and saying, hey, I'm kind of interested in this. Do you have a project that you could probably put me on? And he did, and I was able to actually do my own project to add to the team. So I definitely think that asking if you're interested in something, definitely, I think it's important.
I would say definitely asking for stuff, but also being very open and flexible to whatever opportunities come your way, and be prepared to take them when they arise. For me, I was a web developer when I started, always wanted to be a web developer, never wanted to do anything else but web development. Then a leadership opportunity came for me to run something for syndication. So I started doing syndication work and leading efforts in that. Sorry, I'm waving my hand so I can turn the light back on. And then once that came on, and in that role, I was learning a language, which is proprietary language just for Comcast. It's not used anywhere else but at Comcast. And my my VP saw potential in me and eventually wants me to become a manager, but he didn't think that me staying in that role would be good because it's not good for my career overall. If something should happen here and like for some reason my career is eliminated, my job is eliminated, that's not a transferable skill to somewhere else. So he was looking out for me in terms of me being marketable anywhere in the, wherever. So be careful of going to a job where you're stuck in a role where you're doing a proprietary language just for that company. You don't want to do that. It's not good for yourself. So with that came an opportunity to move into Android development, which is where I am now. And I decided to take that role, like I said before, because I will be learning Java and Kotlin, and those are languages that I can use in a lot of different aspects in terms of software engineering. So just be open and flexible. You never know where this career is going to take you. And it may open up doors you never even expected, so.
I think I would follow up on not coming from it from an asking standpoint as much as a go-getter standpoint. So for me, I'm a Java guy, been working in Java since I can remember, but I really got interested in Node. And so on my team, I think I relate this back to something I said of help alleviate some pain point that your team is feeling, is that we had this occurrence where pull requests would get lost, someone would open up a PR and just like, there's so many moving pieces and we got a million things on our plate that like, it's like, hey, did you finish this ticket? It's like, yeah, it's been in CodeReview for like 2 weeks now. I'm like, well, why didn't you say anything? It's like, I thought I requested you on it. And it's like, man, I get a million emails. I'm sorry, I'll get to it. So what we do now is me and another one of my former coworkers, we created a React app that essentially just uses the GitHub API, right? And it goes and it finds all code reviews that are still pending, that haven't been merged yet. And I wrote the backend in Node, he wrote the front end in React. And we kind of brought it to our managers like, hey, here's this tool that we just created. I don't know if it's something we can use on our team. And he was really excited about it, right? It was a very small value add, but it was something like, instead of having to go combing through GitHub repos to see which pull requests weren't open yet, you just had to hit an endpoint now. And you can kind of see that visually, which is very nice. But the thing being was now it's like you kind of become the de facto Node guy on your team. So if now you have a front end team that you're working with who's like, hey, we're trying to add this to our API, your manager is Java, right? He doesn't know anything about front end or Node or React or any of that stuff. So guess who he's coming to? Well, I know this person on my team knows React, so I'll point you to him and you two have a conversation. And so you innately just start to get introduced to different people from different organizations, from different parts of the company. And now they know your name. And if you can speak to your level of knowledge within what they're looking for, switching roles becomes a whole lot easier, because now it's like, hey, you can reach out to this person like, hey, I'm looking to change roles, I'm looking for a new opportunity, and you already kind of have that cachet with the person where it's like, I'll give Seema a try. I've been able to speak to him about NPM stuff or Node stuff or how to write proper APIs. So I feel like I'd be comfortable bringing him onto my team and seeing what he can do. And that's just another way of being able to switch roles or switch contexts, is be the front runner, be the pioneer of some new technology or new tech stack on your team that they're not using, and use it to bring some type of relief or some value to your team. And when you can do that and your team adopts it, guess what? Now you guys have just added a whole new tech stack to your working tools, right? And you're the person people go to for it. And now it's like maybe they create another division if they really like the tool and people really buy into it. And guess what? Now you're the lead on it because you're the person who obviously came up with the idea, but obviously as becoming can maintain it, you've learned and you've grown with the pain and struggles of it. And that's how you transition yourselves in different roles in different parts of the company. So that'd be a suggestion that I give as well, along with having the conversation of what does it take and asking for it, don't be afraid to step out on a ledge and be the guy that does a proof of concept and see where it takes you. A lot of times it results in nothing, but every now and then, hey, you never know. It could be the next big thing. So don't shy away from it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. I know we're a little bit over time, but I just wanted to ask one last question to close up the panel. Could each of you say just quickly why you enjoy working at Comcast, why you feel like this is a company that, students should consider as they go into fall recruiting?
So Comcast, I think Comcast is a great place to work. Like I said, I've been able to work across the many different product lines that are here. And I think anyone that joins Comcast can have that opportunity. So if you're looking for a large company that has a small company feel, where you can learn and expand your knowledge across not only the cable industry, but the technology industry, Comcast would be that place. Comcast also has a great, they're doing really well around diversity. They have made great efforts around making sure that women and minorities are a large part of the employees here. So I think that with that, Comcast is this space where you can, enjoy a great, a large company industry, a large company feel, and be able to enjoy great culture here.
I would say that I know that sometimes that Comcast doesn't have a great customer experience, but when it comes to working for this company, this has been an amazing company to work for. I feel like from the day that I interviewed here, I felt like the company and the people wanted to invest in me. And that's what really brought me to the company. More than anything, I felt like the people that I was working for were really going to invest in me, and they did. And I work for I work with a great group of people. So coming to work every day is really a joy for me. I just really enjoy the people that I work with, and enjoy the product that I'm working on. Also, if like community service is important to you, I want to say that's a big initiative for Comcast. Like, they're really about community and impacting the community. We have Comcast Care Days. We have a lot of things where we're really trying to impact the communities that we're in. So that's really something that's important to me, and that is one reason why I really like Comcast.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing that I think I like about Comcast is definitely the people here. So every team that I've been a part of, I really felt like included on the team. Everybody is really open to sharing like knowledge, which is really helpful for someone who's starting out, and likes to ask questions. So I really like that experience of just the people here have been really great. Also, there's a lot of like different tech here. So like for someone who doesn't really know what they're like exactly interested in, like front end, back end, cyber, whatever, or data, there's just so many different teams here that do so many different things. So you'll be able to find kind of whatever your niche is, or be able to experience different things.
For me, the thing that really I enjoy most about Comcast is the people. I would get to work with a bunch of really interesting, really cool, really down-to-earth people, people that I have learned that I can really be open and honest with, which is something that you should really value in the place that you work. We're human sometimes, so we all need to blow off a little steam, and when you have people who are there to support you and kind of be in your corner when you're having those down moments is invaluable. With that, I would also say the thing that really attracts me to Comcast is the diversity of people. So you have people from many different backgrounds, many different walks of life, many different tech walks of life, So it's not like everyone came from the Java world and now we're all here and it's like we're just becoming subject matter experts. You got people who come from the infrastructure, you come people who come from maintaining VMs from the first early days of JavaScript. And it's just like there's a wealth of information here if you do the due diligence to go out and seek it. It won't be like a formal, like, tell me everything you've done in your career, but like having everyday chats with people. I found that a coworker of mine in the CAP team, Michael Winslow, built his own DJ software. I'm just like, dude, if you would have stuck with that, you'd be like a billionaire by now. Because the thing is, I'm a DJ too, and I use a DJ software, and it was kind of cool, like to have someone that I literally worked 10 feet away from create his own back in the day before I even thought about DJing. So it's like the little everyday interactions you have, you learn a lot about not only people, but experiences, new things you can look into, new technologies you should look into. And it's just like, I think for me, one of the best parts about coming into work every day is like, I know I'm going to learn something new, It may not be technical, it may not be about my personal job, but it'll be about learning about somebody else. It'll be about learning about a different culture, learning about a new hobby that I may have never thought about doing, getting invited to a different Slack channel for the Philadelphia devs, stuff like that. So Comcast offers that to you. And as you get older in your career, it's like having those experiences from other people to lean on and be like, okay, I know this person has gotten here. I want to kind of tailor my career in their direction because it's gotten them to where they want to be. Having people you can kind of like pick their brains and be like, hey, what do you think of me applying for this role or going and doing this or joining this group can be invaluable. And it's not something that a lot of people get to say they can do on a daily basis. So I'm very grateful for that. And I enjoy working here because of it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for participating in this. Thank you to Deneen, Seema, Alexa, and Mumin. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Comcast will be participating in our virtual career fair on September 13th. So please take a look at the materials that I linked to in the company announcements and consider Comcast for internships and full-time opportunities. Thank you all so much for participating. Students, please stay on the call. We're going to now transition into closing remarks for the summer program from Nathan, one of our co-founders, and Iris, one of our summer instructors.
Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much. Have a good afternoon.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right, I think we have Iris on the line. Did you want to start off with the closing remarks?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I am one of the SU 103 instructors. My name is Iris, for those of you guys who might not know me. So before we go into closing remarks, I actually just would love if everyone could fill out a quick, 3 to 5 minute survey just around the course in general. So if you look in the Zoom chat right now, I have links sent out and there's a different link per class. So if you can just spend the next 3 to 5 minutes filling that out, it's really helpful for us to know how to improve the course, what you enjoyed. So it'll help us run classes in the future. So if you can go ahead and do that. If you go to your little chat icon and look at all the different links, that would be great. Thanks, everyone. Filling out, I appreciate getting survey results. It really helps me kind of improve the course for future iterations and know what to work on and improve. So that being said, good job everyone for making it. I know it's been a really rough 12 weeks. There's a lot of material we covered. There's a lot of coursework, so good job. I think in general, I really enjoyed seeing people progress from the beginning of class all the way to the end and seeing how people have improved their communication skills. I think it's a really invaluable skill to have. And the other great thing about this course is actually a lot of the interview questions and practice problems we picked out are problems we've seen in the real world as well. So I think be proud of what you've done over the past 12 weeks. Be proud of all the hard work you put into this class. It'll really pay off once you're doing interviews. Just in general, I think overall, definitely go through kind of questions you struggled with from throughout this course. I know we've done a lot of different questions, but it's always a good idea. Aside from that, I just want to let you guys know that all the course materials will be available when class ends and you'll have access to it for basically indefinitely. I think aside from that, for those of you guys who haven't finished the HackerRank, there's still a HackerRank this week. It'll be comprehensive for SE 103, I think comprehensive in general for all the different courses. So definitely go through the materials from previous weeks that were challenging if you found any of them to be quite challenging. There's a lot of different practice materials. There's in-class exercises. We did a ton of different mock interviews. So it's always helpful to go through those as well. Yeah, and that being said, good job for making it through all 12 weeks. I know there's really intense homeworks and HackerRanks, so be proud of what you've done. And with that being said, I'll kind of hand things off to Nathan. If he's here, I think he should be here.
Yeah, I'm here, Iris.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Oh, someone quickly asked, will the course material be updated in the future? So the course material kind of will be pretty final. At least for SU 103, I will be updating like the slide links and everything, but the course material is pretty consistent. We won't change it much. Yeah. Is the HackerRank for this week longer than the others? So I'm an SU 103 instructors. It's not longer than the other ones. And I think it's the same. Nathan's nodding his head. So I think it'll be the same length as every other one.
Yeah, it should be the same length, but it just covers a broader range of subjects, like the, kind of a review of the whole program. And yeah, we will be updating the course materials, as Iris said, especially based on feedback that we get.
Yep.
So that's actually it. Iris, thanks to everybody involved in making this all happen over the last 12 weeks, students, all the instructors, Morgan for helping out with all the panels. It's all really meaningful parts of, the program. And I wanted to kind of just stick around. I'm one of the founders of codepath.org, and me and Morgan, we're going to stick around just in case anyone has any final questions. But otherwise, really appreciate you all being here. Really appreciate Iris. Thanks so much for closing things out. And yeah, hope to see all of you again in a future course or event or something codepath.org related. So if you want to have any questions, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, you're all good to go. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. So I'm just going to answer questions from chat, and feel free to talk in audio too. So can we get a list of all the questions in the HackerRank, as it is hard to keep track of all the questions? That's a great point. I'll think about if we can do that easily, and if so, I'll share it out. I'll make a note of that. Serbi asked, what is the best way to stay in touch with the instructors? That's a great point. I'll remind the instructors to post their LinkedIns and maybe their emails as well, in case you want to reach out. Corvin asked, where do we submit our resume for VCF? Morgan?
Yep. So yeah, I'll be sending out a survey later today that'll have all of the companies participating so that students can rank their preferences. And that will also include an upload link so that people can submit their resumes. And I am, for everyone who uploaded their resume into my resume review folder, I'm gonna be taking a look at all of those over the weekend and sending individual feedback to each of them via email. So don't feel pressured to have to submit your resume before I get back to you. That link will be open, I think, for most of next week.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, feel free to ask any virtual career fair questions. I'm just going to go through the questions as they come in here. So the next question is from Anish. Anish asked about the Android class. Well, thank you, Anish, for asking about that, because that's one of the courses I've been working really hard to help build, and we're really excited to run it for a larger audience this run. So the really short thing about the Android class is, if you all don't know, we're offering iOS and Android programs coming up via Zoom for fall. So if you're interested, if you go to our site, codepath.org, you can see all the classes there. We have iOS and Android, and then on certain select campuses, cybersecurity as well. In terms of Android in particular, because that's what you asked about, it's a really cool program. We're designing it with a wide array of experts in the Android sphere. We have Google represented. We have a number of other companies, including like Pinterest, someone from Pinterest, someone from Facebook. A lot of engineers involved in helping us put together and really kind of even create the projects for this Android course and iterate on it. And so it's going to be a great course. You build multiple projects over the program, and by the end of it, you could build any course that you want, any app that you would want, based off of all the concepts and topics that we introduce. So if you have any other specific questions about it, just let us know. I'm going to keep going here. The chat always keeps scrolling down, so it's hard to keep track. Okay, here we go. Salvador asked about certificates. So we like to do certificates for the special topics courses, where we don't tend to do certificates for the interview prep, like software fundamentals courses. But I'll think about that. If we get enough interest for it, and if enough people ask, we might do certificates for this class in the future. But we always do certificates for like cybersecurity, iOS, and Android. See what else we got here. Sorry, it's a little hard to keep track of all the things here. Okay, so let's see. Certificate. Okay. First, I asked about the advanced course. So absolutely. For those of you that don't know, this 3-part series, you're in the intermediate course or you're in the advanced course if you're in this program right now. But if you are in the intermediate course, we absolutely encourage you to take the advanced course in the future, maybe next summer, for example. And the idea is the advanced course builds on everything that you've learned in the intermediate, and it takes it to the next level. So yeah, if you're up for the challenge of it and you're still like ready to like get to that next tier, and you're in intermediate, we'd really encourage you to take advanced in the next time that it's offered, if you can. And then Alice asked about the material covered. I can send you a syllabus so you can take a look at the content that's in the advanced course. But otherwise, I think it's better to take the program in the summers. Okay, I'm gonna keep trying here. Let's see. How to reach out if you'd like to volunteer as a TA. Yeah, Anish, great. I really appreciate that. Just reach out to anyone from the program, I'm Nathan Eskenazi in Slack, or any of the other instructors will route you and get you signed up with interest to be a TA in the future. Slack channels will stay open, so don't worry about that. See what else we got here. You'll always have access to the course portal, Khalib. So don't worry, you'll maintain access to that for the foreseeable future. So you should always be able to go back and review content. Cherie asked about the Android class being 12 weeks before. Yeah, that's absolutely right. When we run the Android class on campuses, it's a 12-week program when we run it on a campus. And when it's a virtual remote program, we're testing out a 6-week abridged version. And there's some reasoning behind that, which I can get into if you're curious on Slack. But yeah, the remote version in fall will be a little shorter. It'll be a little bit more, kind of focused, and it'll be 6 weeks. Salvador asked about technical program manager on campuses. That's a great question. We're going to send out more details around that, but if you're interested, please reach out to anyone from the team. If you want to be a program manager in the future for your campus, me, Morgan, any of the other instructors, we'll get you we'll sign up your interest on that. Swati asked about the best way to be involved with CodePath. Yeah, I appreciate that. I would say we're hoping to create a more thriving community than we have even now. Obviously, you'll always have access to the Slack group. We'd love to do more events, like more panels and more programs for students, even after they've completed a class. So just kind of any alumni could participate. So we'll have more to share on that in the future. And you'll always have access to virtual career fairs going forward. So I would just say keep in touch, stay in the Slack, and of course, reach out to us anytime if you have specific questions. All right, let's see what else we got here. And again, feel free to leave unless you have questions. So Anish, would this Android course be different than the one offered last year? It's going to be pretty similar. If you've already taken the Android course from us, I honestly wouldn't encourage you to take it again. You still have access to the content, so you could always take a look to see if there's anything new that you want there. Let's see what else we got. Okay, Nicholas asked about cybersecurity courses. It's a great question. We should chat about that more. You should reach out to us. We can talk more about how we review campuses to bring cybersecurity to. Arlene, the iOS class is going to be in Swift. So good old Swift, that's where everything's moving. So Swift is a great language. If you've never seen it, it's a really great language to learn, and it's what we focus on exclusively for the iOS class. Let's see what else here. So Anish, if the one you took was the flashcard app, then this is totally different content. So if it's, but the 3 apps, the 3 apps in 6 weeks, that's your, you've already taken that. So I would not recommend taking it again. Maybe you can help out as a TA though. Michael asked, sorry if this is a repeat question, do I need to submit my survey through a link, or can I submit through the survey later today?
So I will be sending out the survey where students can rank their company preferences later today, and you can also upload your resume through that same survey. As I said earlier, I know some students are still awaiting resume feedback from me. So if you wanted feedback on your resume before submitting, no pressure to submit until after I've gotten back to you.
And then Cherie asked about the advanced course being for CS students. The advanced course is a little more flexible. We have some graduate students in the advanced course. We also have some freshly graduated students in the advanced course. So it's not a strict requirement that you're still in school to take the advanced program, because we find like graduate students, even master's program, people who are already in the industry, still benefit from the advanced course. So feel free to apply even if you are no longer in school for the advanced program. Matthew asked, iOS and Android be available? Yeah. So we're going to have the iOS and Android programs available on campuses again in spring. And we're going to continue to do both on-campus and remote programs going forward.
I would say that if you're interested in ever being a technical program manager, taking the online course is a great way to prepare for leading an iOS or Android course at your campus.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like in some ways we think of the remote program as a training ground for people who would want to bring the mobile courses to their campus. That's a great point. Okay, so Cherie asked about, so we haven't 100% ironed out the details here, Cherie, but in general, I think we're going to ask students to be able to come back for future career fairs if they so choose to want to participate. So you'll always, in many cases, have the option to participate in future career fairs, even if you, in addition to the one that you're going to participate in September. So let's see what else we got here. Okay, I think I've gotten most of the questions now. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, so Yuning asked about what are some of the ways that you would pick to choose between iOS and Android. Honestly, the truth of it is that if you have a Mac, you should probably do iOS. I'm not saying you have to. Like if you have an Android phone in your pocket and you're like an Android, you love Android, I would say do the Android class. If you have a Mac and you have an iPhone, 100%, honestly, you should probably just take the iOS class. They're both awesome, but it's really about building what's going to be most exciting for you. So imagine you can build apps. Which platform would you be more excited to be able to build apps on for your friends and family? Okay, let's see what else we got here. Thanks for the link, Guillermo. Okay, so question is, how often is the Android and iOS virtual course going to be offered? We're going to try to offer it at least every fall, but we may get to a point where we offer the remote courses every single spring and fall semester. So don't worry, we plan to expand those programs, make them larger over time, and run them more and more frequently, especially as we kind of continue to improve them. Thank you, Swati. I appreciate the kind words, and really appreciate the feedback from the survey as well. Both what you found helpful, how we've impacted you, hopefully we have, and also what we can do to improve it even more. So really appreciate that, and really appreciate the feedback. I would say, Yuning, if you have a Windows computer, 100% you should take the Android course, unfortunately. For those that don't know, you really can't reasonably build an iOS app on a Windows machine using Swift. So I would stick with Android if you have a Windows computer. If you have a Mac and an Android phone, those are some fun combos. Of course, you can do Android on either software or computer. You can do the iOS class even if you don't have an iPhone. So just to repeat, like if you have a Mac and you want to learn iOS development, you can absolutely do that even if you do not have an iPhone. So there's no requirement to have an iPhone by any measure. Shiri asked about competitive. Yeah, so right now, it's not competitive. It's more just a kind of the class sizes. So I think we have a max size of about 150 students per mobile class right now, and we hope to grow that over time. But I would say absolutely apply, and we hope to make it easier and easier to be able to take it every run. So does CodePath plan to continue to have free courses? Yeah, we plan to make our courses free for as long as we're around. We never have any intention of charging students anything to participate in the courses. We could talk more about that, but the core of it is when I was in school personally, when I was going to computer science, I was really financially strapped. And I don't know that I could have paid to participate in anything when I was there. I was barely lucky if I could pay for my, my cup of noodles. So I would feel very uncomfortable charging students. All right, let's see what else here. So yeah, if you want to be a TPM for a school that's listed or not listed, just reach out to us and we'll gather your interest and hopefully be able to follow up on that. Really appreciate the TPMs. For those of you that don't know what a TPM is, it's Tech Fellows are the students that actually run the courses on the campuses. So we have a bunch of courses that actually run on college campuses all across the US. And the Tech Fellows are the students that actually are learning the material ahead of time and actually running the course. So it's an amazing experience, great resume builder. Really encourage anyone who's interested to learn more. Cool. So I think I did it. I think I hit every question. If anyone's still here and they have more questions, just feel free to speak in audio or add chat. I'll be here for a few more minutes, but otherwise, I hope to meet you all more later. And it's really a joy to run these programs for students, and it all comes from the place of thinking about what we would have wanted when we were in school. So we hope you all enjoy it, and hope to chat with you all later. I'll answer you, Anish, since you're still here and asking good questions. How does CodePath make their courses free? It's a great question, right? How do we make money? Well, one, we're a nonprofit, so we don't particularly make money yet as much, but any money that we do make as a nonprofit, it comes from a couple different sources. One is it comes from things like the virtual career fair and recruiting initiatives and partnerships with companies. And the second one is sponsorships from companies. Like we have awesome companies out there that have donated or sponsored our programs. Facebook being a real title sponsor who's significantly contributed to make this possible. And then also we have foundations. So I can tell you more if you're interested about the nonprofit world, but we apply to grants, and then we get grants that actually fund all of our program work. So it's our absolute goal to keep it free for students, no matter what. And so we have to be creative and think about other ways that we can make money and keep the organization going. So it is tough, but I think it's doable, and it really speaks to the industry that so many companies are willing to help us make these programs possible. Lewis, what classes are offered by CodePath? Yeah, so we actually plan to have more and more classes over time. The general goal of CodePath is to offer any kind of like technical program where there's a lot of jobs. So right now we have really about 6 programs, but 3 of them are just this problem solving technical interview stuff. So we have a beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and all of you have taken either intermediate or advanced here. And then we also have cybersecurity, we have iOS, and we have Android. So that's what we have right now. And then we have a program for freshmen. But going forward, we actually have plans to expand to other classes, which I could talk about another time. Anish asked, does CodePath have opportunities for students to work in a technical role? That's a really great question, Anish. We have a lot of ideas around this. We actually want to have like a consulting agency someday where the entire agency is powered by students and former students. We have a lot of other ideas as well. And we're not yet at a point where we can directly support internships. But of course, like we are trying to directly place students into internships at other partner companies. And that's what the VCF, Virtual Career Fair, and other things are like. Akriti, you asked about the hoodie. Yeah, I got my CodePath hoodie on. We actually would love to create a swag store in the future where you can actually, people can kind of buy some of this merchandise, but we haven't quite done that yet. These are limited batch right now, so would be very hard to get the hoodie, but we do send them out to Tech Fellows. And yeah, Guillermo, you're exactly right. We used to send this out, and we still plan to send this out to anyone who participates as a program manager or a tech fellow on a campus as a thank you. Salvador, yeah, so does CodePath plan on doing a web development course? Great question, and the answer is absolutely. We have an early React course right now, and we also are thinking and building out a Node course in the background as well. So yeah, we absolutely want to do web dev. It's on the roadmap. It might be a while before we launch the classes. We don't like to launch classes until we feel really good about them. But React and Node would be the next, some of the next programs we might offer. Great. Anyone can be a tech fellow. Yeah, thanks, Guillermo. Yeah, Guillermo, I think, has been an awesome, I believe if it's the same person I'm thinking of, you're at UCI, right, Guillermo? And you're a tech fellow there. So thank you so much. I've heard so many good things about your programs, and really appreciate you helping out and repping us at UCI. That's actually where I went to school too. Zot. Oh, see a lot. I see Salvador from UCI as well. All right, I like that.
What is that, Zot?
It's the anteater is our mascot. So Zot is the. It's what we always. I think it's like this, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. UCSD also. My sister went to UCSD, so those are another great school. I was part of informatics at UCI. I don't know if any of you know, like David Kay or, I had so many great professors who helped me over the years. Any other questions or anything? People just kind of lingering, hanging out. Serena, so we're accepting applications now. So you can actually start signing up for the Android class, I think, immediately. And then we are processing them on a rolling basis. So I would say, within the next few weeks, I don't know, I'll have to look at the exact timeline, but I would expect you could start hearing back from us pretty soon on the Android class. And if you want the specific timeline, I would reach out on Slack and I can get that to you. But as I said, we're hoping to accept up to about 150 students per mobile course. And so, we're hoping that we are marketing it, but we don't want to market it too wide because we want to make, we want to make sure that as many people who apply can participate as possible. And then, like I said, we are thinking a lot about how to grow the number of students in the class each time we run it. So we want to grow the class, but we also don't want to sacrifice the things that make the class great. And so it's a balancing act, trying to figure out how to scale up the number of students without hurting the quality of the program. I'm amazed there's still 49 people here, but thanks, Morgan, again. And I'm going to sign off. If you have any other questions, though, I'm in Slack, so just ping me on there, ping us anytime, and I'll encourage the instructors to post LinkedIn profiles as well, and hopefully we can all sync up again soon. So, all right, thanks, everybody. I'm going to take off, but
thanks, everyone.